Death hits hard. A body still, a breath gone. Silence. Or so we think. But what if death isn't the final frame in the film? What if it's more like a surreal cutscene, a transition, a threshold, a waiting room for something else? Here's a tradition that doesn't treat death as closure. Instead, as passage, as transformation, as a test. The work known in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or more properly, Bardo Thödol, claims to be a guide for what happens after you die. Not in dreamlike metaphor, but as a literal, at least in its tradition, map for the soul's journey between lives. It was revealed in the 14th century by a Tibetan mystic named Karma Lingpa, though tradition traces its origin, at least mythically, back to the 8th century master Padmasambhava. At its core, Bardo Thödol offers a psychological and spiritual framework. Consciousness doesn't snap off when the body fails. It continues, navigating a series of in-between states called bardos, potentially landing somewhere new. So what are these bardos? And what really happens when the lights go out? The first major state after death is the Chikhai bardo, the bardo of the moment of death. This isn't a point-and-gone moment in the Bardo Thödol's view. Instead, consciousness enters a trance-like state, separated from the body, but not yet fully aware of that separation. During this state, there is said to appear a clear light, pure, unfiltered awareness. For a soul trained in clarity and detachment, recognizing that light may grant escape from the cycle of death and rebirth altogether. Liberation. But most don't make it. Fear, confusion, attachment, all the baggage carried through life sabotages recognition. They falter. If the light is missed, the journey continues. Next comes the Chönyid bardo, the bardo of experiencing reality. Here, consciousness begins to perceive visions, peaceful deities, terrifying forms, shifting landscapes. Not external phenomena, rather projections, psychological echoes of fears, hopes, memories, karmic impressions shaped by one's life. The structure is subtle. Early in this bardo, benign visions, serene deities, calm colors, gentle light. Later, more terrifying, chaotic visions may arise, distorted shapes, dark energies, frightening forces. The vividness depends on the mind's conditioning. If the soul can stay calm, recognize those visions as internal, not external threats, it may pass through unscathed. If panic, attachment, fear take over, the projections consume it, dragging it toward rebirth in less than desirable realms. That leads into the third major bardo, the Sidpa bardo, the bardo of becoming or rebirth. Here, consciousness is drawn toward a new existence, shaped by what Buddhists call karma, the accumulation of one's actions, thoughts, attachments. Based on that weight, the soul may be reborn as human, animal, ghost, divine being, or even trapped in suffering realms. It's a grim ledger, if you will. Life writes the code. Death just runs it. But it's not just about cosmic punishment or reward. The framework is less moralistic and more mechanical. Attachment, craving, ignorance. They tug on your consciousness when the body disappears. If you haven't cleared those patterns during life, the path is almost set. Now, why does this matter? Or why did it matter to Tibetan practitioners? Originally, Bardo Thödol was, and is, a ritual tool, meant to be read aloud by a lama for someone who just died, sometimes for up to 49 days. The recitations, prayers, chants, they serve as signposts and warnings for the soul navigating those bardos. That ritual context matters, because without it, stripped of intent and tradition, the text becomes just another esoteric curiosity. A book, not a map for dying. In the West, translation by W.Y. Evans Wentz in 1927 made Bardo Thödol a sensation. But the translation carried certain interpretive biases. Some scholars warn that many Western readings drift far from the original ritual and doctrinal context. So while the "what happens when you die" framing fits our curiosity, it also distills a deeply ritual-based tradition into a concept easier sold in spiritual markets.
When the bardos shift from literal guide to symbolic lens, they begin to show us something far deeper than myths or afterlife fantasies. In that light, what the ancient texts describe isn't a journey of a soul entering some distant underworld, but a transformation of consciousness itself. The clear light, the deities and demons, the visions and terrors, these become metaphors for the mind stripped of all distraction, naked and raw. As one interpreter puts it, when we are at last freed from the body, the karmic vision of one life is completely exhausted. And what remains is a gap, fertile with vast possibility. If consciousness truly is the root, not matter, not the body, then perhaps death isn't destruction, but unbinding. This doesn't guarantee escape or salvation. It guarantees clarity. It means the core of what you are, your awareness, may endure beyond the collapse of flesh. In that frame, every moment becomes sacred. Every fear, attachment, memory you carry, they're not just burdens for this life. They're the architecture for what may come after. The process of letting go, of understanding, of mental clarity, it isn't optional. It's essential. So before we talk about where we go after death, maybe we should ask where we are before death even happens. What patterns, what consciousness, what clarity are we living with right now? Are we building light or lining up shadows? If all of existence, moment by moment, is part of the bardo, then life and death blur. Awareness becomes the constant, maybe the only constant. So let me ask you, if your consciousness survives beyond the body, what kind of consciousness do you want to carry forward? Until next time, keep questioning, keep searching, beyond the structure of what you know.